Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hello, my crafty friends. Welcome. I have Spellbinders December card kit here. This month's card kit is called Heart Hands, and I'm going to quickly show you the contents of this kit before we get into our 10 cards. You always get a contents page. This tells you what the kit includes. They always give you some pretty examples of some card ideas. And then on the other side, it shows you how to use the dies that are included in this kit. Here is the stamp set. I love that little envelope there. There's a lot of pretty elements in this set. And the sentiments are just fabulous as usual. I'm going to pull out the dies that come in this kit. I always like to see if any of them coordinate with the stamps. And this die here cuts out one of the sentiments. And then you get to these pretty hands and some flowers. I always like to store my dies on my Spellbinders diamond. Just keeps them safe and they don't get lost on my desk. You get some beautiful gold sequins, and as always, here is the set of die-cut shapes. You get 10 envelopes and 10 cards. Card bases, I should say. This month, you get a set of tags. I really had fun with these, as you'll see here soon. You get some chipboard stickers, double-sided. And you also get some pretty puffy stickers. This is alphabet set. And then here is your double-sided adhesive and your foam squares. And then let's open up this pattern paper. This is one of my favorite things from the kit each month. But I'm going to flip through all of the patterns for you. You get 2 of each, and it's very thin weight, which is nice because I like to layer this paper on my cards. It also coordinates really nicely with the die-cut shapes and the stamps. This is just a fun, very beautifully coordinated kit. This month, the kit kind of gives you a break from creating Christmas cards. These are more, I'd say, Valentine to everyday types of cards you can make with this kit. And last is the cardstock. You always get a lot of cardstock. Let me just flip through these and show you the different colors. I liked it this month because you get a white and a cream, as well as a vanilla colored cardstock. And I always love their craft cardstock. It's just very original. I had so much fun with the tags this month. They don't usually add a pack of tags. And so this was something kind of new. And then I'm going to very quickly show you some of the die-cut shapes. I like to go through them and see what I have to work with before I start creating my cards. I usually put sentiments in one corner of my box, florals in another, inanimate objects, and then animals in the fourth corner. But you get a lot of tags in this set this month as well. And you get 2 of each shape, which is really nice. For card number 1, I'm going to start by layering some of my pattern paper and cardstock. I really liked this brownish red piece here, so I'm going to mat that with a piece of black cardstock. And then my black cardstock is just slightly smaller than my white card base. So this will have 2 mats behind it. And this one turns out to be my very favorite of all of the 10 cards I'm going to create in this video. This is kind of an ode to libraries and book lovers. I work at a library, so the tag I'm using for this card just kind of tickled my heart. It says borrower's card. And I'm using some black and white striped twine. I'm going to distress it with a little bit of vintage photo. This will just help it stand out a little more from the background. And it just gives it a cute, old-fashioned touch. I'm going to attach this down flat onto my card. And then I have some more die cut shapes that I selected that I'm going to put on this card. I love this little book. It says Romantic Poetry, and I'll distress this one. A lot of the cards I'm creating are going to be collage cards like this one. And I am going to pop this piece up with some foam squares. And now for the heart. I didn't think that needed any of the vintage photo around it, just popped enough on its own. And here's another cute little library borrowing card. And then, of course, a little coffee mug. I used the die cuts to cut out some flowers, and I used my black and white cardstock, and I'm just going to put those down flat with a little bit of liquid adhesive. And then I wanted to use that book bag that you see there with the rainbow on it. I just thought that was so cute. I don't end up using that on the outside of my card, but I do put it on the inside. The sentiment is going to say a little note, and I'm going to heat emboss this with white embossing powder on this little strip of black cardstock. I love it when stamps come with the sentiment that says a little note, because you can just use those all year round. So let me melt the embossing powder, and then I'm going to pop this up with some more foam squares. I'll adhere this white flower down first, and I just kind of trimmed it off at the bottom so that it would fit behind the little book. And now for the sentiment. And that's all there is to this card, but I just love the way it turned out. Here is a peek at the inside, and there is that little book bag. I also used a leftover piece of pattern paper. Card number 2 is going to be another collage card. I use another tag on this card, and I'm using a piece of the craft cardstock, and I cut it down to be just a little bit smaller than my card base. I'm actually cutting this tag down a little bit. It was just a bit too long. I'm going to attach a piece of floral pattern paper at the bottom of this tag, just to add a little bit of color to it. And then I can just flip it over and cut off the excess. And here comes some more vintage photo. I use a lot of this stuff this time. However, I don't know if I needed it for this card because it kind of blends into my craft cardstock a little bit too much. But that's all right. I still like how this one turned out. I'm going to use the sentiment that says, "You are the best." And this is the fun one that comes with the coordinating die. So I just stamped that up with some VersaFine Onyx black ink. And then I can run this through my die cut machine and pop it out. I'm going to glue this onto my pink tag. Stamping it on this white cardstock and then die cutting it really makes it pop off of the card. And I think I would have stamped it on the pink tag, but it just wasn't long enough. But this looked really cute. I decided to take the twine off of this and add some white ribbon. Instead, it just needed something a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to use the same ribbon and go through my larger tag. I'll trim this down to size, and then I am going to reuse the little bit of twine I had and just tie a bow around the ribbon. I was finally able to put some of my twine and ribbon to some good use on these cards. I don't often use it, but I think I used it on almost every single card this time. I'm going to put a pop of gold in between the seams on this tag. And then I put some Arteza foam tape behind it. Let me peel off the release paper. And I'm going to put this down kind of wonky. My next step is to put my flowers down, and I went ahead and distressed them. I pulled out a bunch of the die-cut flower shapes for this card. And these flowers look so cute and old-fashioned. They just went really well with the theme of this card. And now for the smallest flower at the bottom. I adhered some of the gold sequins around the front of this card and more pattern paper on the inside. And now on to card number 3. I really love this sentiment that says, "Hello, lovely," and it has a cute little heart in between the words. And I'm using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp this directly onto the tag. I pulled out another piece of the craft cardstock and some pattern paper. This pretty pastel pattern paper was really fun to use. I really liked the look of it. I'm just going to put a strip of pink paper at the top. And I'm going to adhere this down flat onto the craft cardstock. I'll put a little more vintage photo on this tag. And then I wanted to use some of the cute hearts from the die-cut shapes. So I pulled out a bunch of those. This white heart needed a little pop of color, so I'm putting some, I believe this is picked raspberry, just on the edges. It helped out a lot. I already tied a pink bow with some very thin ribbon, and I'm going to attach the bow with some twine. So I'll just push the folded edge of the twine through and then wrap it right around the bow. And this will just help to hold it in place. You could also put a glue dot behind your bow just to ensure that it's not going to move anywhere. Let me trim off my twine as well as the ends of my bow. And then I decide to peel up the pattern paper. I just thought this needed a little bit of distressing. This Kokuyo dot liner that I used on this is great because it does allow me to peel it up without ripping the paper. I'm going to distress it with the picked raspberry. This could be used even as a Valentine's Day card because there's so much pink going on here. And now I can reattach it to the craft cardstock and start adding all of my other elements. I'm going to pop up my tag with some foam adhesive. And I put this one down straight. I'm going to put this right onto my white card base next. The biggest hearts I'm going to glue down flat on the tag. The smaller hearts I'll pop up with some foam squares so that they are the same height as the tag. I use all of the foam squares from this foam adhesive first, and then I cut it up and use just every bit of this foam adhesive. And that is all there is to this card. I didn't even add any sequins to it. I just liked the simpleness of it. There is some gold foiling on the smaller hearts, and I thought that was enough sparkle for this card. Now on to my next card. I'm using some dies from Becca Feekin to create a wreath. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but I will link them below. This makes this beautiful wreath. I'm going to tie it with some ribbon onto another tag. This tag I chose for this card is really cute. It says, "Do not lose this card." I'm going to stamp a sentiment. I'm going to use the stamp that says "a little note" just on the corner of the tag. This is some more VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I didn't stamp it completely. The E at the end of note didn't stamp out very well. I'm just going to pull out a black pen and fix that. I'm going to attach my pattern paper to my card base next. I really loved this piece with all of the envelopes and letters on it. I popped up my tag with some more foam adhesive. I had a lot left over in my stash from previous kits, so that's why I still have so much. I'll attach this down at an angle. And then I've picked out some more die-cut shapes. These are all letters and envelopes, and I'm just going to glue these down flat on the front of my card. I'm making sure not to cover up the sentiment on this tag. I am going to add a few of the gold sequins around this panel, and here is a close-up look. I used my last envelope on the inside of the card. In the pack of die-cut shapes, there are a lot of cute crafty tools and art mediums. So this one's going to be kind of a crafty card. I'm using the pattern paper that mimics the die-cut shapes. It has some cute scissors and pens and ink. And then I cut out a frame just using 2 rectangle dies. I'll use some more of my black twine for another tag. And then I'm going to pop up my frame with some foam adhesive and center this on my card. I put some foam adhesive on the back of my tag, just so it's the same height as my frame. And then I can start adhering on all of these cute die-cut shapes, and I'm just going to glue them on flat. I love this little bottle of ink. And then this one is a fountain pen. My favorite piece is the scissors right here, so I'm going to put them on the card prominently. You also get some little, what would you call these? I think they're color scheme cards and an envelope. And then I can glue on this pretty pair of scissors. I end up pulling up the little fountain pen, and it kind of tears my tag. But I just wanted to move it over just a bit, and I'm going to put a sequin there just to hide the rip. Now I can glue down the scissors. My sentiment says create, and it comes from the die-cut shapes. I like to add a little bit of glue behind it just to make sure it stays in place. I'm going to add a glue dot behind my twine just so it stays in place where I want it. Then I can just press both of the ends of the twine into it and it holds it fast. And here is a close-up look. On the inside, I used some more pattern paper and 2 more die-cut shapes. I thought those tubes of paint were really cute. And now for another wreath card. I really love this delicate wreath stamp, and the sentiment inside is just beautiful. It says, "To a beautiful soul who brings light with her smile." I'm going to use some more VersaFine Onyx Black ink for this. And I'm actually going to heat emboss it with some clear embossing powder because I want to do a little bit of ink blending over over my sentiment and over the wreath. I stamped it out more times than what I showed in the video. But now I can pour over my clear embossing powder and tap off the excess. I'll quickly melt these. I do allow my heat tool to warm up before I bring it to the paper. And then off camera, I am going to fussy cut out my wreath, both the outside and the inside. And then I use a Spellbinders oval die to cut out my sentiment. In the stamp set, there are these little rectangles. One is the outline and one is the inside. And I decided to use them as bricks. So I'm just stamping a little brick wall to put behind my wreath. And it's just wonky. It's not perfect by any means, but it looks cute, I think. And then for the inside, I'm using some Distress ink, and this is Victorian Velvet. I love this color. I'm not going to fill in every single brick, just random here and there. There's a piece of pattern paper that matches this color really well, and I'm going to attach that to the card base first. My brick wall is a little bit smaller, and you can see there I practiced on the opposite side. That one was really too wonky to use. And then I'll center this on the pattern paper. I'm using some scattered straw to color the wreath. And then for the sentiment, I'm going to use more Victorian velvet just around the edges. To attach my sentiment to my wreath, I'm going to use a small paper punch to punch a hole into it. And then I'm using some pink and white twine. I'll wrap this around the wreath and tie a little bow. I'll speed this up because I do fuss with it a lot. I'm going to use another flower on the edge of my sentiment. I just thought that looked so pretty there. I also found some really cute, wonky looking stars that I'm going to glue down flat on this panel. And then behind my wreath, I'm going to use some very thin strips of foam adhesive. And I like to take off the release paper before I manipulate it around the wreath. It's just easier that way. And then my sentiment is just going to hang free. It's just going to be not attached by anything except for the twine. But I do like to put a nice even layer of adhesive behind the wreath. Then I can just center this in the middle of my card. And that's all there is to this one. I love the soft colors of this. That Victorian velvet is just beautiful. And here it is. You can kind of see the bricks behind the sentiment. The inside I just left pretty simple with a piece of pattern paper. And now to use the heart hand dies. These are so much fun. I didn't want them to have a particular skin tone. I just wanted them to be bright and colorful. So I'm using some distress inks on these, just blending the red and the yellow to make a pretty orange in the middle. So the colored pieces are going to be the background. And then I cut it out with black cardstock just to make it into a silhouette. And then a little pop of color will show around these hands. I'll use some liquid adhesive to glue them down. They look kind of strange now because they're so thin, but once I put them on the colored cardstock, or my ink blended cardstock, you'll see how pretty they are. I'll use my pickup tool to adhere the little teeny tiny pinkies. These dies would be perfect to create some fun Valentine's Day cards. I'm going to set these aside to dry, and I selected another piece of pattern paper. I love the chevron, the black and white. Behind my pattern paper, I'm going to do some more ink blending, and just the edges are going to show, so that's why I'm just covering the edges of this piece of white cardstock. It's kind of messy looking now, but it won't be once I put my pattern paper over it. The sentiment on my card is going to say, "Hello, lovely," again, and I'm going to put a little bit of clear embossing powder over this. I'm going to add a little bit of picked raspberry over it just to make it pop between these two heart hands. And I cut that out with another oval die from Spellbinders. Here it is all ready to go. So I'm putting down just a little bit of color. I don't want too much. I want a lot of the white of the oval to show. Now I can start putting this card together. This is going to be a landscape top folding card. Next is the pattern paper. My oval I'm going to pop up with some foam adhesive, and I'll center that next. And then the hands I'm just going to glue down flat. I add a few sequins to this card, and I'm calling it done. Those heart hands are so unique. They were awfully fun to play with. In the stamp set, there were a lot of small stamps, and when stamp sets include small stamps like this, I like to create my own pattern paper, especially when it involves a cute little envelope like this one. So I'm using some brown ink, and this is from VersaFine Claire. It's called Acorn. My next image is a heart, and I'm going to stamp that up with some Distress Oxide ink. This is the Picked Raspberry. I'm just randomly stamping them, making sure to turn the stamp so they go in all directions. And then the butterfly I'm stamping out with some orange ink. This ink is called Spiced Marmalade. I pulled out this cute frame from the chipboard stickers, and I'm going to use that, but I want it to have a white backing, so I'm going to adhere it to this white cardstock first. I'll let that dry before cutting it out. I'll attach the pattern paper that I created onto my card base. This is going to be another landscape top folding card. I'm trying to be careful because my ink is still wet. It's a pigment ink, so it takes longer to dry. In the center of my frame, I want to use this die-cut shape heart. I'm using some more picked raspberry to add a little pop to this. The frame I popped up with some more foam adhesive. This is from my stash. I use a lot of foam adhesive, so I have to dig into my stash for this. I also pop up the heart with some foam pieces. And then the sentiment is a die-cut shape, and it's really small. It simply says, "Love your smile." I added some sequins around this panel. And on the inside, I used another die-cut shape. And the sentiment says, "You are the best." And I stamped and die-cut that. On to my next card. This one is going to be an explosion of tags. Even after this card, I had a lot of tags left over. This pink tag is going to be my focal tag, and so I popped that up with some foam adhesive. And the rest, I'm just going to adhere down flat with some dot liner. And then I can take my long, sharp scissors and just trim them off. You could use your paper trimmer too, of course, to trim these off. I'll speed this up here because I do go really slow so I don't cut into my main cardstock. And I'm being careful not to cut my twine. The tag is going to say, "Hello, lovely," again. I really like this sentiment. It's so pretty. And I'm going to stamp something on every single tag. This next one says, "You are the best." I'm trying not to press down too hard with my acrylic block, but I just gently wiggle it so that I get everything stamped out. This tag is going to say a little note. And then at the bottom, the tag is going to say, "For you." On the tag on the side, I'll stamp the heart. And I didn't stamp this out very well the first time. So I was very lucky. I stamped it out again, but I had to look over the acrylic block. My head gets in the way here just because I have to look through it. And it stamped out just perfectly. I lucked out there. I also used one of the chipboard sticker hearts at the top right corner, and here's the finished card. Of course, more tags have to go on the inside. This was a fun one to put together. I really like the outcome. And now for my very last card. Unfortunately, I lost some of the footage for this one, but it's very simple to create. I'm using another tag. I stamped the silhouette of the girl on the tag, and then my sentiments are both chipboard stickers, and I wanted to add a little bit of color just to make them pop off of the chevron pink pattern paper. So I'm adding some picked raspberry behind them. I'll glue these down with some liquid adhesive as well as a foam square where they go off the side of the tag, just so that they're the same height as my tag. And then I did use a little bit of pink ribbon at the top. I also add a few sequins on this panel. But this kit was so much fun to play with this month. I think I needed a break from the Christmas cards a little bit. Again, this kit is called Heart Hands, and it's Spellbinders December card kit. I'll have all of the links listed below, as well as the links to the products I used to create these cards. I hope I've given you some fun ideas and some inspiration of how to use this card kit. I really love creating with these kits each month, and I really appreciate you watching and thumbs-upping and all of your lovely comments. Here is a close-up look at card number 10. And a peek at the inside. I used some more of the flower die-cut shapes. Thanks for spending some time with me today, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye.